First on the agenda will be the pledge, led tonight by Assistant Superintendent in charge of construction, Mr. Trey Lee. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Y'all please join us in a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Okay, next will be approval of the agenda. Have a motion? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of the consent agenda.
Move to approve, Chairman.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right. No visitors, right? Okay, spotlight on, looks like Siegel High School tonight.
All right, spotlight on education, Siegel High School. Mr. Larry Creasy, Principal of Siegel, will come up.
Good evening. Just like to thank Mr. Spurlock and the board for allowing us to come this evening to talk about this great opportunity that our students have been given with this new program that we have, the Siegel Aviation Program. It came about, this is our second year, and it's been a lot of work. We've stole a teacher from a different district, so and then of course Mr. Spurlock and Ms. Pilgrim and Mr. Lewis giving us the materials and the equipment needed to have a great program. I'd like to introduce Mr. Myers. He is our aviation instructor, and we'll bring him up and let him tell you a little about our program.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here this evening. I'm Scott Myers. I teach the aviation flight curriculum at Siegel High School. And I have one of our students with us. Luke Blaine is here. He's to answer any questions that I can't. So hopefully that we can, if you have anything for us this evening, we can get through that. This is our second year, and we want to share with you a few things that we're doing and maybe talk about some questions that you might have. The first question that I get a lot is why aviation in the high school classroom? And that's a lot of my colleagues that are teaching this as well, and there's only about maybe 10 or 12 programs now in the state that are doing that. But why do we need this? Why do we need to spend the money to do the things that we're doing? We're going to try to share with you a little bit about the information this evening. The next one, please, sir. This is our latest purchase. This is a Redbird FMX. It has it's a full motion flight simulator. And this is the pinnacle of any type of flight training in the United States, let alone in a high school. So for us to get the funding to do this is off the charts. I have a number of colleagues that are very jealous of what we're doing here, and we're very proud of this. And you'll see more of this in social media as we kind of learn more about it and our students start having some more success with it and things like that. We've put about 110 hours on this machine already so far, so we're getting our use out of it. But it does all three motions of flight: pitch, roll, and yaw. And it lets us fly anywhere in the world that we want to. And we're very fortunate to have that. And our students are getting this is actually without leaving the ground. As this program is designed to prepare pilots to pass the FAA piloting now. You use 2.5 hours instruction time in their process. We could, or even as upperclassmen, we can get them back in our schools, and we can let them use our simulator if they want to advance their licensure towards instrument flight. and they can spend, it takes about 40 more hours of flight time to do that, and they can log 20 of those hours in the simulator here. So we can really cut down on their costs, and so we're excited about that. We have other simulators in our very well funded. We're in line of preparing them better for the next level, whatever that is, if it's college or trade school or things like that. We do have a kind of a side part of this is we do have a drone. We've got a number of drones in our classroom, and we're teaching that to our students as well. Hopefully one day we'll be able to teach some classes like that. But we use it for, one of the things that we use on campus for is we record all of our fire drills. So we get a heads up on fire drills. Look, it's one of our pilots that does that. And we'll go out and then we'll monitor what's going on in our fire drills, so we can tell that if we've got a place where students are taking too long to get out the building, then we can make some adjustments about what classrooms we need to move and things like that. So we're letting our students do that, and we're doing some other things with that. We've been tasked recently with doing some more things with our drones, so we're pretty excited about that. You can see once again some of our equipment that we've been fortunate to have there. Here is just back to our question, why aviation in the high school classroom, and the reason is that there is a shortage in the aviation industry. But it initially was identified as pilots, but now it's across the board. It's pilots and mechanics and avionics technicians, air traffic controllers. In those numbers are kind of impressive or staggering, if you will, but basically in the next 15 years, they need about 2.5 million highly trained people to work in this industry. So what I tell my students is, why not us? Why not we be the next corporate pilot or UPS pilot or Delta pilot or whatever, F-18 pilot, whatever's coming down the pike that these young people are interested in, we'd like to give them those opportunities. And we don't have to look at those. This is just a reference here, but you're welcome to look online at some of this. But all the industry leaders are talking about a shortage, and it's identified now as a real shortage, and we want to get in on that. We've got a pipeline that we can send our students right across the street over here and do that. I talked to at MTSU, I talked to their chief flight instructor. He says, get all the 14-year-olds that you can right now. He says, in 8 years, I can make them professional pilots. Okay? If that's what they want to do, we have the means to do that. 3 years ago, they had a little less than 400 students in their program. Now they're maxed out at about 750. So you can see, and that's just in the flight department. Maintenance is maxed out. They've got about how many ever students they have a waiting list twice that long to get into the maintenance side of what they're doing at MTSU. So this career, this industry is taking off, and we want to provide our students with opportunities to be involved in whatever they want to do. So can we go to the next one, please? This is just a quick, why aviation? There's openings, and what are they paying? 8 years ago, 10 years ago, small airlines, commuter airlines were paying about $30,000, which is not a lot of money to fly on. Nowadays, they're starting that process is about $60,000 to $70,000 with usually about a $20,000 signing bonus just for commuter pilots. That's small airline. So whoever would be a Delta feeder, an American airline feeder, that kind of stuff. But what's really interesting is the starting pay for mechanics now is getting just kind of crazy, because they're identifying that those positions are getting hard to fill. We can get a young person basically less than 20 years old with a license, and some states are doing this. I think that's one of our next challenges in Tennessee, is to see if we can do the maintenance licensing in the high school. But PSA Airlines is paying their starting mechanics about $54,000 a year starting out. So imagine being 18 years old with a government license to work on civilian aircraft and have an opportunity to provide for yourself and your family at about 18 or 19 years old, starting in the mid-50s. And it just goes up from there. I know UPS are paying their mechanics six figures, low six figures for 10-year mechanics. So back to the why not us? Let's give our students, if they have they have a desire to want to be in this industry, we want to provide that. So that's kind of what we're doing over there. We're trying to give them opportunities that will kind of fall into their wheelhouse, if you will. One of the things that we've been tasked to do through Ms. Tyra Pilgrim and CTE is look for some industry leaders. And one of the things that we've partnered with, and hopefully we'll get a chance to share more about that later on this year, is Delta does a program called Propel, and their Propel representative is a guy named Eric Wesley, and he's the Propel representative at MTSU. But him and I have had a good relationship so far, and he's going to come on board and kind of serve on one of our advisory boards. But he's a first officer for Delta. But he knows exactly what it's going to take for our students to get to the level that he's at, and he's going to be able to provide some mentoring for us and some other opportunities in our classroom as well. So we're looking forward to that and bringing some people like that on board. And this is a good community for that. There's a lot of aviation going on just in Rutherford County between here and Smyrna. There's a lot going on, so we're looking forward to tapping into that and just like I said before, opportunities for our students. That's what we want to do. Are there any questions for me? This is the time I got a guy that can answer them all right here. I'm telling you right now. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. This is phenomenal. So what I'd like to know is when can the students get started? How early, and how many different classes are offered for this program? For instance, if you have someone start as a freshman or sophomore.
Yes, ma'am. We have 3 classes right now. The state has the standards for 3 classes: an introduction to aerospace, an aviation 1, and an aviation 2 class. This takes a minute for us to learn this because there's a lot. This is all new terminology, a lot of new technology. We talk about things that these students have never heard about, and so it takes a minute. When I start talking about flight. And the principles of flight and those kind of things and how that works in flight control services. If you're not familiar with that, it takes just a minute for that to kind of sink in. And so it takes us just a little bit to get our students on board with that and the maps, navigating. But what's great about this is there are things that we learn on the first day that these students are going to need to know all the way through the completion of this course. So, but we have 3 classes right now, and we start freshmen. I like to get freshmen in if I could. That's a little bit of a challenge. Freshmen, young men, well, we'll just leave it at that and go from there.
Thank you.
Tell us about, of course, I've been over there, and I've actually had some of our directors of school around the
Yes, sir.
mid-state over there. Tell us a little bit about on your major simulator on the number of airports that you can actually simulate landing. I mean,
if there's an airport in the world that has an identifier, we can take you to that airfield and fly you from there. So it just doesn't have to be in the continental U.S. If it has an airport identifier, we can go anywhere in the world and simulate landing there. So if you get on YouTube and look at the top 5 hardest airports to land at, we can take you to those 5 and let you try to land there if you'd like to do that. What I like about those simulators, about our desktops and the new one that we have, is we have some programs that are on there where we can test our students. So it's not my interpretation of me sitting there saying, I think you did a good job today. I'm going to give you a good grade on this particular scenario. And we have different scenarios: straight and level flight, slow flight, takeoffs, landings, traffic patterns, everything that you can imagine in the flight envelope of training is we can run that on those simulators, and the simulator will give you a grade. Here's the parameters. Here's what you need to do: lift the nose at 55, climb out at 75, hold runway heading. And I don't have to say I think you did a good job, because when they finish doing the simulation, it gives them a grade. And so it's fun to see right now the progression of as we're learning. And it was one thing to do it on a desktop that you are manipulating. When you take off in the simulator and it moves with you, it's a whole new ballgame. And so our grades kind of went down to begin with, and now we're starting to benefit by that. So it gives us a chance to assess our students in a way that's in the parameters that's been set there. So it's a great opportunity, yes, sir. But we can take you, we can fly in any conditions. From a tablet, you can be flying, and I can change every parameter that you can think of on the airplane. Weather, wind, temperature. I can turn off any instrument. I can make any emergency scenario, the whole 9 yards. And I can move you anywhere in the world that you want to fly to. So it's if you've got some time, we'd love to make this is a standing invitation to come by and see what we've got. We'd like to share that with you as well. Anything else? Thank you all again for letting us present this to you all and for your support.
Keep up the good work. Anybody on the board that hasn't been to Siegel and toured that program, it's very impressive. It's also very impressive to talk to the students. It's really eye-opening on what they can do. All right, let's move on to recognition.
Recognition. McFadden School of Excellence was named a National Blue Ribbon School, and I'd like for Dr. Blair to come up and Dr. Blair, take us through how you get designated.
Evening, everyone. The National Blue Ribbon School recognizes schools each and every year, and you can receive that award once every 5 years. And we've been blessed enough at McFadden to receive this now our second time. There were 6 schools in the state of Tennessee to receive a National Blue Ribbon. There's about 300 schools total in the nation that received that. I know Buchanan received it a couple years ago. So most, if not all, the credit goes to these folks right over here sitting. Even on a rainy day, they are, they're here just like they are every day at school, doing the things that I'm so proud of. Working with our kids, you see the model there, empowering today's students to grasp tomorrow's opportunities. We're doing that every single day at our school. And I look around and I see Mr. Marshall, and Mr. Cans Johnson, Mr. Creasy, my wife Tamara. The Blue Ribbon Award was given to us, but it was given to Rutherford County Schools because of things we do in our district each and every day. So the aerospace program, it's exciting stuff. We're just very blessed to be recognized. Again, it's the hard work of my teachers. We put a lot of work on our students, and we ask a lot of our parents. Mr. Jordan, you probably know me better than anyone in this room. You've known me a long time, back when you and Mr. Cates used to visit me at Christiana. And, I've always been a team guy.
No, you're probably the second best principal in your family. But you're excellent.
Thank you, sir. That's okay, because I'll hear that every day from Mr. Evans as well. So, it's a competition. But I've been a part of this team for 29 years in Rutherford County, and I'm very proud of that and proud of what we do as a district, and will continue to do as a district. So thank you, folks, for recognizing us tonight. And like I said, we're going to keep on doing what we do each and every day for Rutherford County Schools.
We appreciate you, Dr. Blair.
Thank you.
And your staff, teachers.
Okay, let's move on to number 9, summer school.
Yeah, summer school proposed calendar found on tab 2. These are proposed dates for the high school summer school at 2020. It's attached. It will be at Blackman High School. Motion to approve these dates for the physical summer school to be held at Blackman High School as presented.
Okay, any questions? Have a motion? Thank you. Second? Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, number 10, special courses.
All right, these instructional department has requested permission to make an application to offer credit for the special courses under the following guidelines. Rule 0520-1-3-.05-2A, offer credit for special courses under these following guidelines. Local school systems may offer these special courses not listed in 0520-1-3-.06 on an experimental basis. The Commissioner of Education must approve each of these courses in advance each year. Rutherford County High Schools are requesting approval for the following course: Audio Production 1, Audio Production 2, Audio Production 3, and Audio Production 4, Introductions to Microbiology, Survey of the Human Body Systems, Emerging Infectious Diseases, Program Applications in Data Science, Neuroscience and Society, Advanced Honors Positive Psychology, Introduction to Linguistics, Advanced Studies of World War II, American Sports History, Advanced Studies of the Civil War, History of the recording industry, and there's also a court attachment of all these courses and assurances. Motion to approve the 2020-2021 special course request for Rutherford County High Schools as presented.
Okay, have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
What do we do if some of these courses are clearly, well, they may have a very limited number of people that are interested, but suppose Siegel had 8 and Riverdale had 10 and so forth. What do we do then?
Yeah, once we get them approved, we can add in, and obviously not offer them at courses, schools that don't make. So once we approve the list, if there's an interest in that school and it makes, then we'll offer the course.
By make, you mean a certain number?
Right. At least we try to make it 15 or higher.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Safe School Grant.
Yeah, this is the True North Geographic Technologies and GIS Consulting and Services Company owned and operated in Murfreesboro. These services provide a span of many area local government, including land records, public safety, public works, and utilities. True North has a long-standing GIS service agreement with several of our local governments and agencies in Tennessee and Rutherford County, including the city of Murfreesboro. Rutherford County government, the Consolidated Utility District, Middle Tennessee Electric, and 9/11 District, and others. The objective of this project is to leverage existing mapping and GIS resources coupled with the True North 3D rendering tools and GIS expertise to produce 3D interior maps of our schools. This will allow RCS to cost-effectively acquiring mapping that is more spatially accurate and intuitive for the SROs and external public safety personnel to familiarize themselves with the physical layout of our schools before arriving on site. Motion to approve $49,440 of Reserve Safe Schools grant money to fund development for the True North Geographic Technologies 3D imaging for 4 varying floor plans in our comprehensive high schools as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Thank you. Second. Okay, any questions or comments?
I have a question, Chairman.
Okay.
And I'm not really sure, maybe Mr. Krim, if you can answer. Is this system being used anywhere else in Middle Tennessee, do you know of, outside of Art County?
It's being used locally in several government situations, and we also have a relationship with them as Rutherford County,
Okay.
for the 911 district.
And schools specifically, are there other school districts that are using it?
Not in the immediate area that I'm aware of.
Okay. In Tennessee at all?
Yes, I believe there's another, I couldn't quote which one it is right now, but I've seen several mappings that they've done.
Thank you.
Yes.
In our meeting that we have coming up, or will you go in our executive meeting, will you go into a more detailed?
Yes, sir. There'll be quite a bit more detail on the total concept of this.
Gotcha.
Anyone else? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. CDI Head Start.
All right, this is the CDI Head Start lease found on tab 5. The Community Development Institute Head Start, Inc. has indicated a willingness to execute a lease for the portion of John Coleman Annex building that has been used for Head Start program. The lease will run from January 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2020. Rent will be $3,364 per month, which is the average amount of monthly cost Head Start has been incurring. The Head Start program at John Coleman Annex will end on June the 17th, 2020, and the June 30th end date will give the CDI approximately 2 weeks to remove its personal property from the building. Also, I think there was an addendum there that if they do not secure the funding, that they can terminate it with notice. Motion to approve entering into attached lease agreement with Community Development Institute Head Start, Inc.
Have a motion?
Move we approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. A second? Thank you. Any comments or questions?
Chairman, I do have another question.
Okay.
As it pertains to the routine maintenance, and this might be a Mr. Bodery question, in the past with the last company, was it not true that they paid us for maintenance?
It was factored into the, in the original lease, it was factored in that we would charge them for routine maintenance, but that's excluding HVAC repairs and roof, repairs. I, of course, when we started invoicing the previous company, I was of course factoring all that into the cost. Then we prorated it based on, Mr. Lee had some folks come down and roll the area to make sure we had the right square footage, so we could prorate the amount of that maintenance cost along with utilities, custodial, supplies and salaries to Head Start. So this is, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Sorry, that was the original lease, but is that different here? Because it looks like it reads differently.
What we're going to do, that's correct. What we're going to do in this current lease that you're in front of you, took the average of the last 12 months. That would include that maintenance cost in there, and that was the average of the last 12 months. So to arrive at that $3,364 for that square footage part of the building that the Head Start is occupying.
Okay, so it's factored into the cost of their lease?
Correct, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Anyone else?
That's correct, and we, not only them, but CDI, they are current. So we are current with both the old company and CDI with the Head Start lease as of well, they'll of course owe for January once you approve this lease, and I'll invoice them this amount right here for January forward for each month. But they are current.
Anything else? Okay, we got the motion and the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, 13. Laverne Primary.
Yeah, Laverne Primary and Rural Waldron discussion, we talked about that during our work session. What we're requesting or informing you we're going to be doing is Laverne Primary is a little bit different. We don't have a K-1. They're the only K-1 structure that we have that's in our district. And of course, Rural Waldron serves grades 2 through 5. What we want to do is bring them under one umbrella. It wouldn't change anything. The school would still be used as a K-1. But it would bring them under one umbrella, and that way that we can have a cohesiveness in terms of accountability on both schools' part. The school's name obviously would be Roy Waldron Elementary School.
Anyone have any question on that? Okay, we'll move along to the disciplinary hearing.
The disciplinary hearing appeal. The board is requested to review the February 3rd, 2020 decision of the Disciplinary Hearing Authority to uphold the remandment of a student from Rockville High School. The student was remanded under Board Policy 6.313 for the use of illegal substance on school grounds. And based on this review of the DHA record, you can do the following. 1, affirm the decision. 2, overturn the decision. 3, modify the decision to a lesser penalty. Or 4, grant a hearing before the board.
Do we have a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
move to affirm the decision of the DHA on this case.
Thank you. Second? Okay, we got a motion and a second to affirm DHA. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Redstone Federal Credit Union.
This information can be found on tab 6, Redstone Federal Credit Union and Blackman High School wishing to partner together for the Redstone's Affinity Program. If this is approved, Redstone Affinity will work with Blackman High School to market the program to the community. The program will allow Blackman to collect a small fee each time the Redstone member uses a specially designed BHS Redstone debit card for any kind of purchase. This program is at no cost to the school. The contract has been reviewed by Ms. Sarah Page, our staff attorney, and Mr. Jeff Reed, our board attorney, and Redstone hopes to have this program running in order to coincide with the opening of the branch at Blackman High School in the fall of 2020. Motion to approve Blackman High School to enter into this affinity program with Redstone.
A motion? Thank you. Second? Thank you. Any questions? Got a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Facilities.
We have 2 facilities requests here found on tab 7. First is Thurman Francis Arts Academy. Principal Jeff McCann has requested 2 projects for Thurman Francis. The first one is to change out the existing scoreboards in the gym, and the second is to install 2 additional water bottle filling stations. Engineering and construction has reviewed the products for both requests and finds them to be acceptable. Both requests is at no cost to the board and is funded through the PTO. Mr. McCann, are these original scoreboards?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Oh my goodness, I might want one of those if you're not going. I actually went to school there when it was a junior high school. I don't want one. Okay. All right, motion to approve installing 2 scoreboards and 2 new water bottle filling stations at Thurman Francis Arts Academy at no cost to the board.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Blackman High School.
Yeah, Blackman High School, Dr. Justice has submitted a request to build a 12-by-16 equipped storage building for the girls softball program. The city of Murfreesboro has reviewed the request and issued a building permit. Engineering Construction has reviewed it and finds it in order. Motion to approve the building, an equipment storage shed for the girls softball at Blackman High School at no cost to the board.
Have a motion? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. No insurance?
No updates yet. We'll have another meeting coming up, next meeting.
Okay, director's update?
Just repeat what we said the other night. The town hall was good, very good. In March, we're going to be at Siegel High School. What's the date on that?
March 16th, 6 p.m. at Siegel High School.
March 16th at 6 p.m. at Siegel High School. Mr. Creasy's going to have us something to eat, I'm sure, when we get over there.
He is now.
We may even get over there early, and if you're around, we can let you get in there and demonstrate the simulator for us. Would that work? All right, okay. And we'll be talking a little bit about the format. It will not be career, but there'll be a type of a format for it.
Okay, Tennessee Legislative Network, Ms. Johnson.
Sure, there's a few pieces of legislation I found interesting to share with you tonight. House Bill 1687, Senator Hensley and Representative Sepicki, I can't, sorry, I'm saying that wrong probably, but they talked about removing, it focuses on removing K2 science and social studies standards. It's currently in Curriculum Testing and Innovation Subcommittee. I don't know if it's going to move or not, but it's kind of an interesting piece of legislation. House Bill 1688, same sponsors. The amendment to this bill would require K through 3, to have 2 25-minute periods of physical activity a day, and that is currently, it would be a total of 250 minutes per week of physical activity. Right now, the requirement is 130 minutes of physical activity, and PE time can count towards this. So that bill is currently in the curriculum testing.
Mind if we speak on that?
Sure.
Tell us how fiscal impact that would have on us.
If that were to be something that were to pass, that would have a huge fiscal impact on us, especially if you're looking at the PE requirement portion of it. Right now, we're able to, our elementary principals have done an absolutely phenomenal job of looking at current staffing and finding a way to meet the new law that goes into effect this year. Adding that would have a tremendous impact.
Thank you. One other one, House Bill 1671, Representative Lamberth and Senator Haley address, this piece of legislation addresses the alternative school requirements. It looks like it's a revision of what, or they're revisiting something that passed last year. This amendment would add in exceptions for students committing zero tolerance offenses and suspensions 10 days or shorter. It passed full committee and has gone on to calendar rules. So it looks like it's a cleanup bill. One of the other interesting things I found was the Education Commissioner, Penny Schwinn, has come under fire for granting a contract to Class Wallet, a Florida-based company, for $1.25 million a year. That organization will manage the voucher program, which the administration's rolling out, or trying to roll out a year earlier. So they didn't go to fiscal review. It's kind of very interesting how that went about, but that's what I have.
Thank you. Okay, Federal Relations Network, Ms. Sharp.
Mr. Chairman, real quickly, if I may, Dr. Sullivan, can you speak maybe in a little more detail? You talk about significant fiscal impact from that PE legislation. Have we been able to put any numbers to that yet?
Not yet. So really, it's going to come back to probably interpretation for one thing. So when we talks about 2 25-minute periods of physical activity, if that wasn't required by an actual a licensed physical education teacher, that would have a different impact. But space, of course, as we know, is going to be a huge deterrent for us to find 2 extra 25-minute periods.
Okay, great, thank you.
Before it was modified, we were looking at adding, I think it was like 5 physical education teachers that would be split up throughout our elementary schools.
And with the modification right now, we've added 1, and so that was able to give, with the rezoning from Wilson to Walter Hill, we're able to meet in meeting with those principals between John Coleman to have a full-time, and then with Walter Hill to have a full-time, 1.5 as well.
That's more time than spent on a lot of subjects. When we met down at Smyrna Town Center, I don't know, a couple of months ago, didn't they address that, or am I wrong? And you just cannot continue to cram in, and you're literally doing that into the curriculum for the school day that we have. There's just not enough minutes to do it. I'm all for this, just on paper, but there's not enough time for the curriculum now.
Right, when you add in kindergarten through 3rd grade, it's supposed to have 120 to 150 minutes of reading instruction daily, to not in an uninterrupted 90-minute block in kindergarten through 3rd grade. You know, time for lunch and then time for math, science, and social studies going to the K2 standards. You know, that something has to give at some point.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Sharp?
Okay, I've got a full report tonight. On February 5th, 2nd through 5th, 19 Tennesseans descended on Washington, D.C. for the National School Board Association Advocacy Institute, along with many other school board members from across the United States. Imagine 600-plus public school advocates on the Hill advocating for teacher retention, fully funded IDEA, closing the digital gap, and last but certainly not least, safe schools. Sunday started with Speaker Eugene Robertson, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist, and his thoughts on today's political landscape and how it impacts education and equity. After a quick coffee break, we were updated on the 2020 census by Francisco Negron, Chief Legal Officer with the NSBA. Wrapping up the day with television producer and political advisor Mark McKinnon, he hosted a political armchair chat. I thought that was a little bit risky with an open mic for that many people and the full range of political spectrums there, but pizza and the Super Bowl was waiting on us, so that didn't go too long, fortunately. Monday was filled with breakout sessions on all 4 advocacy subjects. We had multiple speakers full of information. The best part of the day was lunch. Our guest speaker was Assistant Secretary of Education. Fortunately, most of us were finished with our lunch when he began to speak. He was speaking on the administration's Freedom Scholarships. And there was quite a few people that got up and left the lunch. So after that was over, we were given our schedules for Tuesday. We met with the TSBA, and they gave us our assignments, and we did a beloved, role play as to what we were going to say to our audience for the next day. So Tuesday started fast and furious. Our entire delegation met with Senator Marsha Blackburn for her Tennessee Tuesday event. Security was very tight because our day on the Hill coincided with the State of the Union. Yeah, you didn't take anything with you. You were lucky if you got a phone through security. So each of our meetings were held in different buildings, and by the end of the day, passing through security, we had it down pat. I personally met with Congressman Desjardins' legislative assistant, Marsha Blackburn's legislative assistant, and the majority of our delegation met with Senator Alexander. Wednesday morning before flying out, I was able to score a meeting with Congressman Mark Green and his legislative assistant. I found a lot of times working with the legislative assistant is maybe better because you don't have someone pulling on the congressman or the senator. They will listen to you for 10 minutes. So I got a lot of good information into them as what we're dealing with. When I met with Congressman Mark Green, I took him this book, and this is one of the books that we've been talking about in our safety subcommittee, and it's not the incident itself, it's about the policies that Mr. Jordan was talking about earlier that we get from the state level, that we get from the federal level, that kind of box our teachers and our administrators in. So I suggest everybody read this book. It gives a clear indication of what our teachers and our administrations are dealing with, trying to just deal with students on a daily basis. So that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. Ms. Sharp, thank you for that. Sounds like you had a pretty productive few days up there.
Yes.
I'm curious what your kind of takeaway was in general from all the different Tennessee legislators that you got to meet with in terms of their listening and being receptive to our concerns and the things you all talked about while you were there.
I think they were very receptive because one of the things that we discovered in our breakout groups was the IDEA was promised to be funded at 40%, but typically since it started, it's only been an average of about 16%. So funding is way, way down on that. And one of the things that I explained to them is, we may have gifted, we may have learning disabled, we may have a behavioral and then a completely disabled student, and all that is in that same bucket. So there's more things that we're adding to that bucket as the years go along that come out of that pot of money. And Mr. Spurlock can speak on that if he wants to, but that's one thing I don't think they understand, that we see them all. We school all the students, regardless what their physical capabilities are their mental capabilities, and that's where a lot of our money goes to, and especially if we're not fully funded.
So you feel like we were heard?
I feel like we were heard, and I'll follow up with some and try to stay in front of them and see what we can get done.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Sharp.
You're welcome, Mr. Chairman.
All right, general discussion.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, the time to pick up a person's qualifying papers to run for a school board in August is now, and I have chosen not to run this next time. And we need to give my district and anyone that might want to run an opportunity to know that I'm not running at any rate. I wouldn't want this board or this audience to think anything is particularly wrong, because it's not. And I look forward to the next 6 months of working with you all. For now, I think that's probably all I need to say, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. We're going to miss you.
Well, you're going to have to wait 6 months to miss me. You'll make it, as Tess said.
Anyone else? Okay, I've got an apology to make here. During our last month's meeting, School Board Appreciation Week, we got some letters from Smyrna West, and I'd like to thank them for that. I'm sorry I didn't get to read them till after the meeting was over, but I do appreciate them, and they were very interesting. So, thank you, Smyrna West and Ms. Sides. Okay, there's nothing else. We're adjourned.